tutorial series on Blender 2.67. In the series, which there's a playlist link in the description, we've covered edit mode, which looks at modifiers that help you with editing, and we've also looked at a few other modifiers in the series as well. But we haven't actually looked at a tutorial specifically related to modifiers. So what I'm going to do is I've got a few objects here, so we've got a cube, plane, sphere, and Suzanne the monkey, which are all just added down here, and there's your monkey. And we're just going to add these modifiers. We might not even use Suzanne, but we're just going to look at what modifiers do and how to use them, and then when you are actually looking at specific things, you might want to use them in your project, since now that you know what they do. So yeah, we've seen a few before in the different tutorials, but what we can do is we can just quickly look at them now, and we've seen Bevel right there. As I said, it cuts off the edge, and when it does this, it doesn't have anything in between. It's just if you had a sharp edge here originally, and that just helps with, say, things like smooth shading of a flat object and so on. It just helps with the edges, and basically it can also help give some specific subdivision effects. So we've seen the subdivision modifier before. If I subdivide this now, we can see that it's still a cube. It's just a more rounded cube rather than an actual sphere as it originally would be. So I can undo that. I can undo what we've done here, and I'll just apply a subdivision surface, and we can see what I'm on about is making a completely circular ball, which is a little bit different to the sphere, because the sphere goes up to a point, whereas this has loads of faces because it's splitting the face and it's smoothing it into a circle. So that's how those two that we've seen before, that's how they're done. We might have also seen the, looking at them now, we have seen the mirror modifier, obviously. It's quite an important one. If we go into edit mode, we can see that on the x-axis it's being mirrored, and it's being mirrored from the origin point here. There are a few important settings which we can do. For instance, apply clipping, which means that it's going to stay at the origin point when we're pulling away, which is useful. And we can also turn on merge, which will merge it once we're done. Those vertexes will be in the middle. They'll be merged, and they'll, it'll bring together any that are on the outside that are too far out as well, which is good. So I'll turn them off now. We can also, that's basically all the settings you're going to need there. We can change the direction of the mirror, and we can have multiple directions of mirror, but that's fairly basic. So let's go ahead and take this back to a cube, and let's look at the from the top now. So we got generate. These are the ones we're going to look down. We're not actually going to look at all of them, but we will look at most of them. And then there's a few deform ones which I'll look at as well. But simulate is just the simulate effects, so I'll just ignore them for this tutorial. And if you want to look at any of the skipping points in this tutorial, I'm going to add them in the description, and then you can look at specific modifiers throughout if you've seen any of them before, if you want to know what they do. But for now we're going to add the Boolean. So we're going to need two shapes for this. If I bring in the sphere and I bring it up like this, and I just scale it down a little bit there, we can see the Boolean modifiers being applied, but it's not doing anything at the moment because we need an object for it to operation intersect. So we'll see what the intersection does when we add the object to be the sphere. Let's take a look. We can see this is our cube right here, which we've got selected, and it's being cut to stay inside of the sphere. So we're intersecting them, and the intersect is the sphere. But we've also got three other options which we can try out. So let's go union, which is going to join them together. If I go into, we can see that our cube is now pretty complicated on the top here, but we can see how it's done. We can see that we've got a sphere, or the top of the sphere here, and that can be done for some quick modelling, but it doesn't give the best results in the connections. And then let's go with difference, which is a good one as well, which is actually pushing the sphere out of the shape. And that gives like if I apply this now, it gives a perfect sphere, or perfectly what we had right there. Which is good. You can't notice what's on the flat shape here. It doesn't matter what's there because no one can see it. You just might want it not to be messy for certain reasons. But that's what it does. I'm going to go ahead and keep on doing, and we'll put this sphere back where it came from, which is right over there. So now we're going to look at some other modifiers. Going down still, build. Now I don't know any specific uses for build, but if I go ahead and click it, we can see that it's disappeared, but if I play the animation, then we can see that it's building it. It can give some cool effects, but if we can randomize this as well. So basically, instead of being ordered like it was, builds it randomly. But I'm not too sure on the uses for that because you know, it was a pretty good effect. It'd be good for maybe an animation, but also it's not perfect. So I'm just going to ignore that. That's all that does. And we're going to look at the next one down. Then there's Decimate. We'll look at this on the sphere because we can see all the faces right now. But decimating, say if we want this shape to be less complicated, then what we could do is we could turn down, or it's like unsubdividing, but it'll work it out with triangles and merging them together. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn up the ratio, turn down the ratio, sorry, and this is going to bring them into each other, and we can see that it's definitely less complicated now. It's still keeping the circular shape, but we can see that it's kind of, if you were looking for a certain effect with the faces, it would ruin that effect. So we can go on smooth shading, and nobody would notice the difference apart from depending on the quality of the edges. So high quality, lower the lower quality of the edges. And then we've got a few more options here. For vertex groups, we don't have any at the moment, but we can triangulate vertex groups. And unsubdivide, we don't actually have any. It doesn't work out too well, but if we take it one up, we can see that it could give some better results, depending on what the shape is. I wouldn't do it with the Suzanne because there's not enough information there. And we can keep turning this up, and we can get some better results. See on the even ones, it's definitely a lot smoother, or it's perfect to how it would be, which is good, and it could be something that we want, but again, it depends what you're going for. And then this option is just another option, which can work out, and it could give again smoother results or certain effects that you want from the shape. And then there's some more options there as well. But that's pretty much what that does. So we can move on to the next one. Edge split. So with an edge split, we need to know a little bit more. We need to click it, and we can see that it's not really going to do anything at the moment. It's splitting edge angle, which I'm not too sure. Yeah, if an angle's past a certain degree, then it's going to split it, and it's saying what the angle should be for it to split. So if it's above this angle, it's going to split it, or if you can turn this up, and it'll decide where it's splitting it from. But I kind of think it's easier, if you want a more specific result, to go and, as it says here, sharp edges. So we can go ahead and look at the sphere, select an edge, and let's go ahead and mark an edge with Control E, and we can mark a sharp. So now that we've marked that, that appears in a light blue, and we can go ahead and apply this, and then we can see where we've marked the sharp is where a split has been done. So that's all the way around. We've taken off that, which can be quite useful. It's more useful for, let's say, if we look at the cube and we mark the sharp along the top here. So let's go ahead and Control E again with the mark sharp. Let's get rid of the Boolean modifier applied earlier, and edge split. I'm going to then add a subdivision surface. I'm going to turn off edge angle, and we can see that how that's done. So this top edge has been split, and when we've added the subdivision surface, that means that it's going to kind of subdivide them separately and smooth them separately, which gives this kind of an effect which is quite good, and could create you some items with you know, like a lid, which is useful. It can be used for some modelling there, but we'll ignore that for now. We're going to come back to this cube, so what we can actually do is clear the sharp with Control E again, clear sharp, and there we go. Next modifier on the list is let's go for multi-resolution. This is similar to subdividing, apart from we're subdividing, so I'll subdivide it once, we can see the result it gives. But we can also choose preview, so preview 0, that's taking it back one subdivide, or we can render like we just can on the subdivision. But we can also change how we see in the sculpt mode as well. So let's go ahead and subdivide it a few more times just to see what we're doing with this. And we can preview different ones to what the sculpt is, and different to the render as well, which can save you some space, also the speed of what you're working on and so on. And we can delete the higher one once we're on preview 3. We can delete higher, which is going to remove the top subdivision, because it keeps all the information from the top subdivision, and then you can bring that lower. So I'm going to subdivide it again, and I'm going to go ahead and look at, let's say, sculpt mode on this. I wasn't getting the best results. I mean, I couldn't. There we go. It's working now. And so I'm just moving around on sculpt mode, pushing in areas, or whatever I want to do, and then I can take this out and preview it down the layer of what we had before. But also go back into sculpt mode and sculpt some more in this resolution, or maybe subdivide, see it in a lower resolution in sculpt mode, and then preview it and render it in a higher resolution. So it just makes it easier to work with, and it just it's really useful. For instance, now I can see what it looks like in a higher resolution, and we can just make some more advanced shapes out of that. So I'm sure you can think of uses for that, but we're going to remove that now. It's just a cube, so it should be still a cube shape. Next on the list, we'll keep going down. I'll ignore remesh and screw solidify. I'll look at the plane here. We know that it's just a thin plane, but if I go with solidify, then we can see very slightly there that it's making it into more of a box. But if we change the thickness, then we can definitely see we're creating a thick object here. That can be useful for making 3D objects. It can be used when you might want to create like a shell of what you want, but it's also like maybe armor or something. You want to solidify it so that people can see that it's actually a 3D object. There's a few different options in here, offset, clamp, but this is a pretty basic one, so we can change which direction it's in and things if we take the thickness down and bring it the other way up. But that's fairly basic, so I'm going to close that for that. And triangulate, basically just turns each face into triangles. Can't see that at the moment because I haven't applied it. But if we look at it on this, we can apply this, take it into edit mode, and see all the triangles here and how they're done. And that can kind of help with animation. Say if you triangulated your mesh, then you could get some better movements out of it, or smoother movements. But other than that, I'm not too sure on the uses which that can be used for. It can just get used to some smoother results, especially if we did mess with the shape. And so I'm going to go ahead and undo that. We're getting towards the end now. Let's look at, I'm just going to skip a lot of these as, and we'll just look at one really cool one to end it with. And what I'm going to do is delete all these, bring this sphere, which we triangulated, I'll make sure it's got nothing on it, scale it up, and we're going to subdivide this a few times. Let's go ahead and subdivide. We want basic subdivisions, so I'm going to turn this up, and then that should be okay, and then we can apply subdivision surface just to subdivide it, but we want it to be simple subdivide, which is basically what we just did again, apart from it's not actually been applied until we tell it's applied, whereas what I did before is permanently applied now. And what I want to show you is the wave modifier. It's really good. Basically, if I press play on this now, we can see that from a point in the middle, it's bringing it out and it's waving. And if this shape was a lot bigger, then we can see how that's affecting it. But if we've got loads of advanced settings here, so let's go ahead and look at them from the top down. We've also got the apply settings and apply shape key, which you might want to search shape keys. It means that we can actually apply it so that we can animate it individually. But we won't do that right now. Right now it's in all directions, which is X and Y. But what we can do is we can change the directions. So now I've turned off X. We can see that it's kind of like a flag if we viewed it from this angle. But we can see how that's done. We turn off the X angle, so now it's just waving in one direction, which is good. I'll keep it like that just for the tutorial so we can actually see the differences a lot easier. We can change the offset, which is changing when it waves, which is pretty simple. How long the wave lasts. So if it's at 0, then it's kind of infinite. But if we turn this up, then it's affecting how long the wave's going to last. And this is a small shape, so it's not going to give us the best results. Dampening. The position, that just depends on where it is on the shape, so we can see that better on from all the angles. Now that I've changed the position from the center, we can bring this just a little bit to the side, so bring it on the x-axis a little bit, and we can see that now the point is from over there, which is useful as well. But I'll take it back to 0. And I'm going to turn off X again, so we see what we're doing here. And let's go ahead and look at the speed. That's changing how fast it's going. So slow could give some different effects, and I think I'll keep it as slow actually, just so we can see what's happening next. I'll turn it speed up a little bit. So we see that, and let's go ahead and change the height. That's changing how high it's going, obviously. And that can give some cool effects. Width, that's changing when if I change this low, then it's kind of there's not a big gap in between them. But if I change the narrowness up, that's changing how big this wave is. So now it's really sharp wave. Change the narrowness down, and it's really a smooth wave. I think I'll just make it sharp because I know what's going to happen next. Because I'm going to add a cool, just a cloud texture. which is going to use the displacement, so we're working from the original shape, and then it's going to displace it by the cloud texture. And that means that we get these cool bumps going along. And if I set smooth shading onto this, and then change the height, then we can see that it's really cool. Say if I did this from the center, we can see that when something maybe hits the floor or something, we can see that it could create a big wave, and that would just look really cool. And also with this displacement, we can control where it's going to be raised and where it isn't going to be raised. So you could do it in like ribbons or anything like that, which is just a really cool effect. So I hope you liked the tutorial. I know it's quite long, which is why I've got skipping points in the description, which I guess you haven't seen by now. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. So bye for now.